Hi, I'm Chris Pitt and welcome to the 6th YOU SYNTH video tutorial. The video tutorials have been a little few and far between of late because, as we'll see, I've had to do a lot of software rewriting, and I've also been busy moving the website for Maverick Synth onto my own website and creating a sub-website for YOU SYNTH as well. Okay, let's have a look what I've done to the YOU SYNTH editor. The embedded software in the Explorer board has not actually changed. Right, complete with false trigger. Here we go. Now, I'll just run you around this. Here we have the MIDI control. This is for the MIDI output to, in my case, Ableton Live here. I'm using Loop B internal MIDI. There'll be a link on the screen, which just creates an internal MIDI port so the YOU SYNTH editor can talk directly to Ableton Live. Here we have the RS485 control, which I've talked about before. And here we have a bank of bar graphs indicating which drum pads have been hit and how hard. Here we have just a little display indicating the messages coming from the RS485. Now I've reconfigured the setup so that it can be as flexible as possible. Okay, here we have the setup, which is the top level, which contains all the instruments and everything. Here I've called it test drums. Here's that it has a program number in case we want to remotely select it from the sequencer. An instrument can be any type. Here it's a contact drum. Here it's called default instrument, so I'll call it sampled drums. Okay, so in the instrument selection you can select the instrument you want to edit. Here we have sampled drums, that's the only instrument I've got. Here we can add another instrument, or we can delete an instrument. I've made it so flexible as possible so you can have as many instruments as you like in a setup. Okay, the instrument has a name, a MIDI channel, channel 10, which drums are usually sent on, and it has a type contact drum, which is the only type implemented as yet. Right, and each instrument is made up of a number of elements. In the contact drum case of the contact drum, these are drums or percussion elements or anything that can be triggered. So here I've set up 4 elements, which are all drums: bass, snare, hi-hat open and hi-hat closed. So if I was to select the snare, the name is the snare, that's the MIDI note, and the scale and the offset map the force at which the pad was hit to the actual volume number sent in the MIDI note. More of that later. This is unit type and number identify the particular hardware unit that this element is associated with. In this case 1 and 0, because we only have one board, the PIC Explorer board. And channel 3 gives just an arbitrary input number on the board, 1 to 8, and I can set that, and you can set that. You hit set and hit the pad, and it automatically assigns that for you. Again, you can add and delete instrument elements to as many as you like. Okay, so how does it work? Well, here we are. Let's hit each of the drums in turn. There's the bass drum, the snare drum, closed hi-hat, and the open hi-hat. Now I'm sure the first thing you've noticed is, especially on the bass drum, you can hear it's triggered the closed hi-hat as well at the same time. And similarly, the closed hi-hat triggers the bass drum. This is because the pads are all pretty rigidly mounted, and if you hit one, the impulse goes through the solid rubber into the next one and triggers it. However, I came up with a software solution to this problem, which was, when two drum hits arrived at the same time, is to look and see if one is considerably bigger than the other, and if so, discard the smaller one, on the assumption this is actually just mechanical transmission through the rubber and the bass. So, as you can hear, this now works. The only problem is, if you do try striking two pads at the same time, it can remove the lower signalled one. The eventual solution is to mechanically isolate the pads from each other, so this doesn't happen. Well, that's about it for now. So next time I shall replace the boring old drum sounds with some samples of a stove fan and make a piece of music from those. See you then.